We're all dancing here. Hello and welcome to the latest podcast broadcast of This Week in Science. We are not yet recording the podcast because this is the point in the show where I say, hey, everything you see here is live and thank you for being here. And if we make mistakes, they're going to get edited out for the podcast. So if you don't like mistakes and other things, then subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe. That's what we do, right? Let's get it going. Is your cowlick acting
When I
up?
had a nice tight haircut, like there was always a hair that was poking. Now that it's grown out, it's just all poking out everywhere.
Just keep it growing, Justin. Just let it grow. Let it grow. Let it grow.
I don't have a mirror at home, so the only time I even see what I look like is on the little monitor when we're broadcasting.
We're all here. Do we all sound good? Are we all ready?
Sound great.
Is the audio okay? All our mics are check. 1 2 1 2. Cameras are good.
Blink, blink, blink.
My cats are pushing the door open. Is all nice. So it's time for us to do this thing that we do every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Let us, chips and beans that I won't be able to eat for at least a tight 90. Thanks, Marshall. Off-screen stuff is the best. Starting this show in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 980, recorded on Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. How is science just like the Olympics? We'll leave that for you to answer, but I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight we'll fill your head with flying hippos, Star Trek warp drives, and trust. But first...
Disclaimer. The following program deals with science, that thing that everyone in the modern world relies on. From health providers, technology innovators, and energy producers, to conspiracy theorists, sci-fi writers, and social media influencers. For better or worse, everything we do these days revolves around science. Merely think of a thing, anything, and to be sure, science has too. From an artist's paint formula to the manufactured pharmaceuticals in your medicine cabinet, from the material makeup of sneaker soles to the recipe for the concrete they are treading upon. Your car, your phone, your food, your bed, your clothes, your beverage, your home, your head, all are products of a modern world revolving around discoveries made in science. And so, we present to you a snapshot picture frame of your modern world in motion, moving from one discovery to the next, in a tilt-a-whirl of carnivalesque excitement and dread, here on This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science, Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. 980? What the heck?
Wow.
How'd that happen? The numbers keep going up.
20 episodes left until we hit 1,000. 19, and then we hit 1,000. I don't even know how math works.
I know, we're getting right up there. Thank you all who have been with us for a really long time. Thank you all of you who are joining us for the first time. Thank you all of you who have been with us for just a very short time. It's all fun and it's all about talking with you about the science. And so we brought a whole bunch of good science today. And no, it's not all about the Olympics, even those are going on. And it's so weird. Everyone's like, that was the best opening ceremony ever. And I was like, that was really weird. But I did like the Eiffel Tower light show. That's for sure. That was awesome. But if somebody can tell me what the thing was in the water that carried the horse, I'd like to know. Was it?
I love all of this because I haven't seen any of it, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no,
Kiki,
there's
was a bunch of scuba divers going like this.
That's what I was thinking. But yeah, they must have been, but they were fast. It was like this trimaran submarine,
idea.
but was it a drone? It's probably remote controlled. I don't know. It was going so fast. And somebody has to explain all this to me because there's like engineering involved in it.
A horse in the water. Like now I have to go find this because this stuff's so ridiculous.
A horse floating on top of the water, really.
No,
is what
it was
happening.
running.
Yeah, but
like a savior horse.
I don't know. Maybe there were wings involved somewhere.
Walking on water.
Running, very fast.
Okay.
And then there was music that it sounded like they were singing Super Ninja. I don't know. Anyway, very wonderful, very French. And, you know, what I do actually think is the Olympics are an effort to bring people around the world together. And science can do that too. So, you know, I am answering the question right up at the top. I do honestly believe that the thing that we talk about is our human capacity for curiosity and fixing things and finding things out, and let us all do it together. I brought stories tonight about lady odors, AI emotions, warp drive signatures, good toxoplasma, and nasal memory. What do you have for us, Justin?
I have lesser known cannabinoids. What makes humans special? Why are all the animals getting sick? And a new segment that I called, I read the study title. Do I really need to read the study?
I think I know which one that is.
This is like the whole internet. Oh my goodness. Okay, can't wait for that one. Blair, what is in the animal corner?
Oh my goodness. I have airborne hippos, much like that metal horse you were talking about. I have...
Do you have a sky
snakes
zoo?
with eyes bigger than their stomach, I guess. And then I have iron teeth.
Okay, I'm a little scared.
There's a fellow who is, what is it, the Jaws from the Bond movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly like that. Yes.
Yeah. Who is actually a local Davis guy for a while in the area, and who's like the sweetest father that you could imagine. He's like a really nice guy, even though he looked terrifying in the movie.
But this is what we need to know. Who are the people behind the steel jaws? Who are the people behind the science? I don't know, but we're here to talk about all this stuff. If you are enjoying the show on a regular basis, or just are joining us right now, you can subscribe to us wherever you are viewing, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. And make sure you hit that notification button so you're notified every week when we have a new episode. You can also subscribe to our podcast, which is actually the thing that's been really going on the longest, wherever podcasts are found. Actually, Google Podcasts went away, so now it's on the YouTubes for the podcasting, but you can do that. Look for us, This Week in Science. We also have a website, twis.org, where we share show notes and links and all sorts of other stuff. But now, you ready for the science?
Let's bring it. Yeah.
All right, bring in the science. I'm going to start off the tight 90 of our show with a story about how the nose knows so many things. We know our nose can smell. We know our nose has a whole bunch of neurons in it that have these specialized odorant receptors. It's really complicated and cool. But did you also know that our nasal cavity and our nose also have specialized immune cells that are very important for memorizing the B cell memories, creating B cell memory cells that allow one of the first lines of attack against respiratory viral invaders or microbial generally.
That's a good system. That checks. Huh.
Yeah,
It
I mean
checks.
that's the first line of defense against germs. You're supposed to be breathing through your nose so it can get caught up in there instead of going into your body. So
I mean, we tell people to close their mouth and breathe through their nose, but anyway, not everybody. But Blair, we've been talking about with COVID for a long time, the possible nasal spray vaccines.
mhm, mhm.
And why would they work better than a vaccine that's injected into our blood?
My initial thought was just that the nasal turbinates are a very porous structure that can go straight to the circulatory system, but it sounds like there's more involved than that.
Exactly. So, just today in Nature, researchers published their work looking at the nose and upper airway, which includes the mouth, sinuses, and throat, but not the windpipe. Not the windpipe. So even you might have a sore throat, but that's not involved in what they were looking at. They found a whole bunch of cells, an arsenal, they say, that are capable of fighting off respiratory infections. And over time, we know that the immune systems of people as they age get weaker, and it has been thought that the response in the nose and the cells in the nose would also kind of weaken and go away. But the study that this team just published, they had nasopharyngeal swabs, which we all know from those wonderful cotton swabs that we've used to test for COVID-19 over the last several years. They can reach the back of the nose, and these researchers swabbed 29 healthy adults once a month for over a year to see how their immune cells changed and if they changed. And they found millions of cells. And lots of them were actually like B cells. There were immune memory cells. And they found there are structures in the nose called germinal centers. Germinal centers, germ cells. Those are cells that create other cells. So these are centers that are the places where the B cells they learn what parts of viruses they should be fighting, like how to recognize a virus and how to fight them off. But they found that these germinal centers in adults do not decline in their size or activity. Their effectiveness continued throughout the lifetime of the or the sample's time of the individuals. So comparing ages of different people, there wasn't a really big difference. And looking at the period of time, it was while COVID-19 was going on, and they found that a lot of the host noses actually had B cells that were trained to target SARS-CoV-2. So they our nose cells were already in there. So the bottom line for all this is that as we were hypothesizing and as people have been thinking, maybe these nasal spray vaccines might be better for COVID-19. And actually, they really might be, because there is a first line of defense where those B cells, which are really important for fighting off infections, are located.
And once again, that first line of defense of sort of natural vaccination will be lost on the mouth breathers.
An astute observation, Justin.
The thing that I kept thinking about is the fact that there are vaccines that you administer to dogs nasally.
Oh, that's
Have
interesting.
been for decades. Back when I was working at a doggy daycare when I was in college, so that was 20 years ago now. We were asked if all the dogs had kennel cough, and if they didn't have the kennel cough vaccine, we could administer it through the nose. So the fact that we were administering vaccines to dogs 20 years ago via the nose means that we've known about this pathway for a while. I think what's really interesting is that it's not only as effective, it's more effective, which the other piece of this is that I think having an alternative to a needle-delivered vaccine might improve adoption of the
Absolutely.
vaccination.
Absolutely. I think it also highlights the specificity of the location of infection as well. So if it's a respiratory disease where you're inhaling viral particles, then why not make the cells in that particular area really good at defending against something? If it's something that's more like hand to mouth transfer, or flu is more droplet based, and we discovered that with the masks there was less infection of the flu, but you got to keep washing your hands, right? So still nose, but maybe you're wiping your mouth, you're touching stuff, you're licking your fingers all the time. I don't know what you do. But it's the systemic application of a vaccine is probably, it doesn't get the cells that fight things off, don't get to the right place fast enough. So these, yeah, but I think you're absolutely right about adoption. I think that's going to be big. So I hope they get on it quickly.
Yeah.
But this is exciting, and it could help with lots of other vaccines. And Justin, you wanted to talk about some COVID stuff too? Is that right?
Yeah. So this is, of course, a thing that hasn't gone away. Thought I'd be
Surging.
bold enough to point that out. Yeah, California specifically, I read somewhere that is having a surge in cases.
All the Western states.
All
Oregon.
the Western states.
Yeah, it's not good.
And in the eastern states, some research has been done. This is out of Virginia Tech. They went. Oh, sorry. Just a random coughing fit in the midst of talking about a COVID-19 story. So this was. They went to the animal kingdom to see where it might be, and they I think tested something like 23 different species, hundreds of samples, 798 nasal and oral swabs across Virginia from 23 species, as well as 126 blood samples. The virus was detected in 6 common backyard species during this, as well as others, but the 6 common backyard species and antibodies indicating prior exposure to the virus found in another 5 species, with ranges of exposure ranging from 40 to 60%, depending on the species. And so this was, what was really sort of interesting about this is it's showing that it's not only highly present in the animal kingdom, but the most likely vector for the spread to the animal kingdom was humans. The highest exposures of SARS-CoV-2 was found in animals near hiking trails and high traffic public areas, suggesting that the virus was passing from humans to wildlife. So, yeah, they found
don't have any impact on the environment or wildlife.
Yeah, so there was a couple of ideas about like how this was happening.
Yeah, that's the question.
And it was, of course, unlikely to be direct human interaction because these are, let's see, opossums, deer mice, raccoons, groundhogs, cottontail rabbits, red bats. These were unlikely animals that people were encountering close up. However, the reason that they think the trails in the public areas were being correlated is because of our trash. So
I was going to say trash. Yep.
Yeah. It's very likely that, somebody was taking a drink of water and throwing the bottle away, or the food or the garbage left over from the picnic or whatever it is. That goes into the rubbish bin. The animals then at night are going through the rubbish bin to looking for
The
to scavenge.
raccoons, yeah, the raccoons specifically were the ones that made me go, oh, probably garbage. But
Yeah.
squirrels, yeah, possums.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
right there with the raccoons.
Okay.
They hang out with raccoons all the time. They're like buddies.
And then
But
if
also a
they're
lot of those
having, but what
animals
about the
are
bats?
fed
And
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bats. Yeah,
deer
are they
mice and
the
bats.
bugs that are messing with the trash? And is it
How? Yeah,
Well,
that's
you
an
know, it's
interesting question.
bats. It's like, well, bats get viruses all the time, and they don't care, and they probably do spread it amongst themselves. But
But
they don't.
where did they get it if it's an urban environment, right?
Yeah, but the correlation between being close to humans and getting it, there was a couple of mice that had the same variant of SARS-CoV-2, and I can't really tell if like the mice both got it from a human or if they've spread it from one to the other. There is I think it was an opossum that had a very unique strain that they said would be particularly problematic if it jumped back into humans. So the point of this is that there is a reservoir out there in mammals that is still able to mutate and change and could reemerge. Although, from what this study is showing, the transmission from animal to human is actually is less likely because, again, it's less likely anybody's petting an opossum or going through a raccoon's trash, right?
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, but you see, but we've heard stories before about diseases from raccoons and other animals being transmitted into sandboxes or play areas for children. So maybe not something like SARS-CoV-2, which is definitely more airborne, respiratory, but other parasites and viruses that have definitely the potential to stick to the sand and stay in there and everything. So yeah, you might not pet the wild animals, but the wild animals they're engaging with our human environment. And so, there's stuff there everywhere, but
yeah.
The other piece of this I think we haven't super much talked about is poop. So
we should talk. We talk about it all the time, but
bathroom. Yeah, but in this particular situation, right?
Yeah,
trailheads often have bathrooms. I know that COVID it picks up in sewage systems all the time. That's how you can tell if an area is surging now. They check they monitor via the sewage systems. So if you have a pit toilet at a trailhead and animals are getting in and out of that, or bugs are getting in and out of that and then getting eaten by animals, that could transfer it. But also in the other direction, we don't do a lot of petting of opossums or raccoons, but raccoon warrens where they all poop is a huge problem because of things like Bayless already. So there's other diseases that we can catch from raccoons from the fact that they always poop. They all go poop in the same space over and over and over.
How
and
civilized.
A twig or you sit nearby or it gets on your shoe and then you touch your shoe and then you touch your face. So there's a lot of opportunity for specifically, sorry everybody, for poop to transfer disease back and forth between us and wild animals. So
and I think we forget about that a lot. So when you're scraping that bubble gum off your shoe, just be aware there's been other things on your shoe too. Wash your hands, everybody.
You pick up a perfect walking stick to walk on the hike. That's fine, but wash your hands.
Yeah, and then I don't want to again seem like I'm picking on people who have pets, but your cat is going out there doing all those interactions. Even
if you let your
not.
Cat out.
Your dog, if it runs off the trail,
on your face.
is getting its fur places that you may not have gone anywhere near, right? So,
also, if you take your dog out on your hike, wipe your dog down when you get home,
or at least their feet.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Just live in the world, be conscious, But I think you're saying the big
And-
message is that there are these reservoirs out there, and that we are spreading disease to the animals. The animals are spreading it. It's all. We don't exist in a vacuum without the other animals. It's all, yeah.
That wipe your dog down is actually. I used to get when I was growing up in the back country where we had lots of poison oak, poison ivy. It was one of the two. I can't remember. I think it was
Poison oak on the West Coast.
Yeah, so poison oak. It's all up in the out there in the forest, and like every once in a while, I would come down with a horrible case of this from the dog. Because the dog would go out, they run around, they brush it all, it ends up all over their fur, and then you're like, oh, petting your dog.
Imagine a
and then next
virus
thing
is
you
like
know-
a key, and the cells.
Sorry.
That's fine. That looks very sciencey. What do you got?
Very
there?
sciencey. Yeah, don't let your poison oak covered dog jump in the swimming pool and then you jump in the swimming pool. That's going to cause a problem.
The chlorine might actually take care of that. Don't let him get in the bed.
It doesn't take care of it. Uh-oh. Gary Peters is asking about what we know about COVID being spread by mosquitoes, and that might explain bat infections. And it's possible, but I don't know about that. And we don't know about I honestly, there might be research out there and we should look into it, but I don't know about like blood or bite transfer from biting insects. I think it's a really good question. No idea. Oh yeah, one cool study, not going to talk about it at all, but apparently they can genetically modify certain bacteria to repel mosquitoes, which is kind of awesome. Anyway, microbiome for the win. Blair, let's move away from viruses.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have for us?
I have great flying hippos.
Is this helium related?
Yes,
zoo in the
they also
clouds.
talk really high pitched. No, this is actually just about how hippos walk and how hippos run. And as someone who spent many years giving tours at a zoo and talking about the hippos, and the hippos being my favorite animal, and me spending an inordinate amount of time at the hippo enclosure, I would often tell people about how hippos are actually deceivingly fast. And even though they can be thousands of pounds and they look very the opposite of aerodynamic, they can get up to 35 miles an hour, which is one of the reasons they're so dangerous, because if you get in between a hippo and their source of water, or they feel threatened, they will open their mouth, they will stick their tusks forward, and they will run up to 35 miles an hour at you, and you will get skewered or trampled. And that is why so many people die via hippo every year.
We got the Olympics going on. What's the fastest a human can run? Does anybody know?
Oh,
It doesn't seem like it's 35 miles an hour.
It's close to that, I think.
Here, keep talking, Blair. I'll check it
Keep
out.
looking. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So hippos, I want to say it's like 30 miles an hour. Anyway, hippos, they can get really fast. But then the question is, how do they run? Because way back when moving pictures were invented, part of the reason that cinematography was invented was in order to be able to capture on camera the way a horse runs. One of the very first moving pictures was a trotting horse, right?
Yeah, it was a bet. It was a bet between two rich train barons, and one of them had this portrait, this giant painting. I've seen it with the horse with its legs stretched out in front and in back. And the other guy goes, "Oh no, horses never off the ground all the way. They're too heavy. Right. They always have to have a foot on the ground." And so I think it was Leland Stanford or something Crocker. Anyway, they make this bet, and they hire this photographer who sets up this chain of old school pictures.
Basically a zoetrope, yeah.
Basically, it created the first zoetrope because as the horse runs by, it breaks these little strings, and it sets off this flash camera, and they got this series photo. And it turns out that there's no point when the horse's legs are all stretched out in front or all out and back off the ground. However, there's 2 points during their stride where all 4 legs are off the ground, but they're like tucked up underneath it when it happens. So the guy won the bet, even though his belief that his painting was telling the right story was wrong. It's not like an outstretched thing. It's all the legs all tucked up underneath at a couple points during a gallop that all 4 feet are off the ground. Anyway, sorry.
Right. So horses are off the ground completely.
And they're
often
related to
when they are
hippos.
running. And they're related to hippo, which this article didn't talk about at all, by the way.
Oh, come on.
But it's all fine. Anyway, so the question was, do hippos leave the ground? Is there any point at which hippo feet, all 4 of them, are off the ground? And the reason this question is brought up is that we know that for elephants, that is not the case. Elephants cannot jump, and in fact, they always have a foot in contact with the ground. What's really interesting is there's these different kinds of patterns of movement. There's a 4-beat gait, there's a trot, there's a run, and so or a gallop. And so
Mhm.
the elephant actually is always maintaining a 4-beat gait. So they're always going first it's left hind, then left 4, then right hind, then right 4. So you see other animals walk the same, left, right, left, right. And so they walk that way because they're just so huge. They just can't. There's no other way to do it.
Because of gravity reasons. Yeah.
So, do hippos, which are smaller than elephants, but still pretty darn heavy, do they follow the elephant method or do they follow the horse method? And so this surprisingly has not yet been studied. So do they do this? Do they trot? Which a trot is like a 2-beat gait. So that's diagonal limbs moving in near unison, where left hind and right front contact the ground, followed by right hind and left front. So that's across diagonals. And then you get a full-on gallop, which is what you were talking about, Justin, where they have they're curled up underneath. And so first, this researcher sent a grad student to the zoo, but no surprises there. They didn't get very fast in the zoo.
How much space does a hippo have to run in the zoo?
Right. Yeah, not a lot. So then instead they went to the internet, of course. They looked at 169 strides from 46 video clips of 32 hippos. Most of it was slow walking, but then they also found some trotting patterns. They pretty much always trot, actually. They don't do a lot of that left, right, left, right. They really favor a trot pattern, even when they're moving very slowly. And 14 of 46 hippo videos showed at least brief periods of non-support, which means, yes, they were airborne with all 4 feet off the ground.
Wow.
The fastest sequences showed them airborne for about 0.3 seconds, which doesn't seem very long, except that
The hippo.
an individual foot on the
Flying
ground
hippo.
could be as little as 0.2 seconds. So in that case, they're off the ground for longer than they're on the ground in that moment. So they're pretty good. I bring this up only because, yeah, there goes an excellent video of a hippo running. He's doing a very good trot, and you can see it almost looks like he's floating.
Yeah.
He did trip a little bit.
And then he hit the brakes.
So that's actually a really interesting point, because that's another piece here, is that because they're so heavy, they have so much forward momentum that there's actually a high risk and high reward here, because by getting really fast and completely taking their feet off the ground, there is an increased chance of tripping, and it is harder to slow or to stop. And so there is a bigger chance of kind of bailing out, but they're pretty hardy. So for an animal that spends 2/3 of their time in the water, an animal that's huge, that's thousands and thousands of pounds, that looks very lumbering, they actually are very fast. They are pretty aerodynamic. They can indeed float like a bee, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And so I just
And
love that
steamroll you like
nobody
a
had studied this
steamroller.
yet. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So nobody had looked at this. All they had to do was look at some high-speed photos and found that, yes, in fact, hippos do float.
So, according to the internet, do we have a top speed for humans ever?
Well, Usain Bolt is the fastest human that I am aware of, and Usain Bolt had a top speed of 27.33 miles per hour or 43.99 kilometers per hour very briefly, and that's been matched by some others, but it's pretty much the top. And
So the fastest human couldn't get
beat
away
a hippo.
speed-wise from a hippo.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope, not
Okay.
at all. Hippos have got us beat when it comes to speed. But
Not as
one way
fast as
that we might be able to go faster someday, thanks to Star Trek, is using the warp drive. And while it's a sci-fi idea, and we love the idea of the warp core and its containment and harnessing that energy to be able to create a bubble of space-time in which it warps space-time around itself. So it gets around that pesky law of physics that says that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. Does it work? Is it real? It's got some interesting ideas. Some people, astrophysicists, in fact, have just published a paper in the Open Journal of Astrophysics entitled "What No One Has Seen Before: Gravitational Waveforms from Warp Drive Collapse." And what they are hypothesizing is that we are using these gravitational wave observatories to observe things like the collapse of neutron stars, the colliding of black holes. And in these events, what occurs are warpings of space-time. There's energy signatures that are, vibrational that we are able to detect with, our mathematic ability to figure out what's happening where. And so we're trying to figure out how, if there's a spacefaring alien species out there using something like a warp drive, how could we see that? And can we use our gravitational wave observatories to actually do it? A lot of complicated math that you can actually read in their paper that is in this Open Journal of Astrophysics. Also, they have an article at archive.org. The bottom line is that according to their math, because of the way that the warp bubble is just constantly moving through space-time, we wouldn't really be able to see that signature. The one time that we would see the signature is with warp core containment failure, which, as we know from Star Trek, is not usually a good thing. But when the
Gotta
warp
inject the
core, yeah, dump the warp core, everybody. Yes, and the Alcubierre drive, as Fada is adding within our chat here from a Mexican theoretical physicist, Miguel Alcubierre. The Alcubierre drive, our wonderful warp core, if it failed, it would lead to a change in that bubble that is around the vessel that would be similar to, in its strength, to something about the collapse of a neutron star. But they determined that it would be different than the collapse of a neutron star. So the evolution, or the vibration of the space-time area, would be unique enough that we would if we see it, be able to potentially identify it as something that is not black hole collisions and not neutron star collapse. Yeah, there's a lot of questions involved. And one thing I really, really do love from their conclusions and the end of their paper is to verify that the matter is sufficiently resolved within the volume of interest. We reconcile the matter quantities over time, checking that the net energy flux out of the surface matches the change of the matter energy, and any exchange with the curvature. Anyway, they say that they've got lots of limitations to what they're doing, and they acknowledge that the signal is potentially within reach for future detectors targeting higher frequencies. We caution that the waveforms obtained are likely to be highly specific to the model employed. So their model is just very assumption based, which has several known theoretical problems, as discussed in the introduction. Further work would be required to understand how generic the signatures are and to properly characterize their detectability. And they go on to acknowledge and say, the crew thanks the creators and actors of the Star Trek universe for their inspiration of this work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
see, and that's where I think they've
for sure.
That's where I think they've also limited themselves, because hyperspace drives work a very different way than a warp drive. And what if you combined the two and had a hyper warp space drive?
But that's
then
not what they
you
were
could
looking
be
at.
in a bubble moving at the speed of light or faster than the speed of light. So then you're like, oh, well, then would that model even apply to that advanced propulsion technology? Because even with the Star Trek warp bubble, you actually can't get to the next star in like several lifetimes. So you need a combination of a warp and a hyperspace drive operating simultaneously to go anywhere in space. I mean, it's just basic sci-fi canon. Oh my goodness.
But that was not the study.
I know.
What I'm hearing is they have proven some things that are talked about in Star Trek, like warp signatures. Like you can say, oh, we can follow this particular warp signature. So they are saying that it does depend on what model of warp core you have, and also
And then you can identify what kind of a ship it is, just based on the.
But
so
it sounds like that would only work if the ship exploded.
Yeah.
So you can't just
Catastrophic
travel
failure.
and follow a warp signature as they're using warp, which is how it's used in Star Trek all the time, is we'll just follow their warp signature to see where they went. It's like,
And
unless
and that's what they said in this paper.
wait.
Our math currently and our methods currently do not allow for that tracking. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Unless you had spread out through the universe little gravity detecting beacons in different locations, and then you might actually, not in real time, but in going back through data that was captured previously, be able to track it, right?
Maybe. And by the
yeah.
triangulation, we are using what are the spinnings? Pulsars. We're using pulsars for gravitational wave detectors now, and so that could potentially be something. But yeah, there's this is what they say. We gotta look at it. But I love the fact that this is science fiction inspiring theoretical physics to look a little bit deeper and say, okay, with our methods now, could we actually like detect something like this? Because they're saying that there is the Alcubierre drive and all this. There's a possibility of this kind of technology in the universe if somebody figured out how to harness energy to make it work. And if they did, could we actually detect it with our current technology? And so I think that is just one of the most, I mean, there's fringe science, but then there's the, what can we really see out there? Let's think about this. And so that's what I think is fun about this story.
I think Eric Knapp in the chat room nails it from the scientific perspective, that the ships in sci-fi travel as fast as the plot requires. I think that's a brilliant insight. We should keep that in mind.
It's true.
when contemplating sci-fi. Like, oh yeah, well they needed it too, so that's why it happened.
Yeah, I mean, they
Otherwise,
invented
they couldn't tell a story.
the teleportation technology because they didn't want to have to deal with the logistics of traveling from the ship to the planet.
They didn't
and
have
back.
a budget for showing the shuttle every episode.
Yeah.
Without it being the same shot of the
Creativity.
shuttle taking off and landing every time.
Creativity leads to
Oh yeah.
what it is.
But then
great.
they've had to do endless explaining. It's like, well, yeah, technically it's just a matter replicator, so you could just make clones of yourself or put an explosive in the enemy ship. So you could get rid of all of the plot stuff by just using transporters to do everything. Oh gosh, we shouldn't have invented it. Like they could, like kept the entire series of Star Trek is like trying to put transporters back in the box. I'm like, yeah, but we can use it for this one thing, but it doesn't apply anywhere else in our universe.
You're making me really anxious, Justin.
But I wanted to talk
How
about
can I
something
fix
else.
that?
I want to talk about something else first. So we now know that hippos can run faster than humans.
Oh, yeah, never mind.
Dolphins, they can hold their breath much longer. And a lot of critters have sharper teeth and claws, are better climbers, jumpers, swimmers, can burrow, dive, and fly in ways that we could only imagine as humans. But humans are one of the best animals on the planet. One of the best the planet has ever seen at one thing. Our best physical attribute. You know what it is?
No.
Endurance running. When it comes to endurance running, humans are among the very top mammals in their athletic prowess. So even though, hippos faster and horses can carry more, and all these other animals are running around seeming like they're the natural athletes on this planet, humans actually are better endurance runners than almost any of them.
I'm gonna need receipts, Justin. You gotta tell me more because I don't believe it.
Mhm.
So we can run steadily, not at top speed maybe, but steadily for longer distances and even in hot weather. Our locomotor muscles are dominated by slow twitch, fatigue-resistant fibers, according to the study, and our unique ability to sweat allows our bodies to effectively dissipate heat where almost any other mammal on the planet would succumb to exhaustion, either through too much heat or just using up muscle energy that is meant for either fast pursuits or quick escapes. And this is a callback to a hypothesis about endurance pursuits, that this is maybe was used by early humans or was developed in early humans as a means of overcoming prey. The physiological trait conductive to endurance running first appeared in the Homo genus about 2 million years ago. So we've been doing this endurance running, or having the ability to do the endurance running, for pretty much all of current modern human history, certainly, and way previously, like all the early hominins, starting around 2 million years ago.
And now we have people running the Olympic torch across countries. Great.
And so there's, according to Bruce Winterhalter, Professor Emeritus at the UC Davis Department of Anthropology, there are those who have criticized the theory or the hypothesis of endurance pursuit as being the basis for running skills. One is just the obvious: running is more costly than walking. So it doesn't look like an efficient way of hunting by running after everything. And there are only a few examples of current hunter-gatherers practicing endurance pursuits. But in a recent study appearing in Nature Behavior, Winterhalter and others combined mathematical modeling and a multi-year investigation of firsthand accounts in literature of endurance pursuits they basically sifted through history to find thousands of digitized accounts written by explorers and missionaries and officials, combined with analytical software capable of sifting through all of this sort of knowledge of observation, data points that maybe hasn't been scientifically captured, but all the same exists. And they were able to uncover 391 descriptions of hunts dating from 1527 through the early 20th century of the current modern humans that matched endurance pursuit tactics. And these accounts originated from 272 different locations around the world, which then suggests that endurance pursuit hunting was widely practiced and occurred in diverse environments. So one of the interesting things about the diverse environment is there are, aside from heat temperatures where humans can sweat, and so we have this advantage, and our muscles being designed to run for longer times, if not quicker. They also found examples of coordination, so that while one human may start the endurance pursuit, they may have others who are waiting beyond, chasing the animal in a certain direction. And when they get like a mile into their long distance run, it's like a relay. Another human takes over and continues the pursuit, or a group of humans continues that pursuit for the next mile. And they may have it spread out around an area where they're hunting, so that they're actually transferring the prey from one to the next to the next. So even with the advantage of endurance running, we're slow. We admit it. The water buffalo or the wild gazelle or whatever it is we're going after is going to get away at first.
Hippo's going to catch us.
But at some point, they're going to succumb to exhaustion because they aren't built to sweat and to do long distance, high speed running. And they get overcome by the heat, and the muscle exhaustion takes place. And then the humans have a much easier time, especially the early humans, without like things to throw. Maybe they did. But just if you're a stabby human with a spear or a big rock, crushy human, whatever, having your prey that you're hunting lying down exhausted, unable to run, makes the job a lot easier. Makes the finalizing that hunt much easier. And there's also things that include in that, like our endurance running means that if we're running across sand or even snow, or if there's any sort of additional obstacle or thing that's slowing down normally a runner, we can kind of take it in stride, and we can pace ourselves through it. Whereas other animals, it just increases that fatigue to a greater degree. So they're uncovering of different accounts and different sort of tactics that revolve around the endurance hunt. They say it's giving much more credibility to that stamina hunting that I thought was already a known thing, but apparently it's actually more based on human physiology than it is actual accounts of this taking place.
Okay. So yes, the physiology is there for the endurance. We understand that we have the ability, but now this is more of the anthropological background of, yeah, we really have been doing this for a long time. Let's not just guess at it, but yes, the evidence is there.
I want some numbers. I want to hear if we're actually better than other animals, because
I just told you.
camels.
For distance.
Think about camels. Think about
Mhm.
caribou. They run on sand and snow, respectively.
So
They do it for days without stopping.
So I would
not
wager.
run for days.
I would wager that if you took a caribou into the desert and chased it around,
That's
it
not where
would,
they're supposed to be running around.
well, I know, but humans are everywhere, right? So it doesn't say that humans are the best. It may be that the caribou or the camel is the couple examples, but when it comes to most, I think the caribou we could probably take down this way. I think that's actually how wolves tend to take down caribou, is they chase them until they are exhausted. Like they
They
do.
chase them, but they corner them. They
work as a team, right?
They
No,
get
but
them
they also
juking back
do
and forth, and
they also do pass offs where one group will chase
yes,
it to another
that's
group.
also
who takes over
true.
the
But
chase.
that's
They
not the same
also
as
do that.
endurance. Is the other problem is that's not individual endurance. That is a group endurance. That's very different.
Yeah. But I think we could outrun a caribou for time. Like, think of a marathon runner. Like, caribou don't run that whole time. Like, if they ran a bit and then stopped and rested and waited for us to catch up every time, like, yeah, then they might be able to find a sweet spot.
There's the training, there's the, some individuals are more likely to be able to run like that for a very long time. Others are not. I'm not a great runner. I don't like running. I'm not going to do that. I would not outrun a caribou, but maybe they're the long distance marathoners who they train all the time. They've got the proportions of their slow twitch and fast twitch fibers are finely tuned because of the way they train, because of their diet, because of so many other factors. Yes, I think humans got this endurance ability, and I think that is something that it's great to see we have it. It's great to see the anthropological evidence. I don't think we could outrun a caribou. We could do. I mean, this is getting at like speculation beyond where
I don't know that it is.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think this is a very interesting finding that we have the hardware, we have the power, that this is part of the strategy, anthropologically speaking, right, of how we survived. But yeah, I think when we start looking at this bipedal setup that we have versus a quadruped that their entire survival is based on evasive maneuvers, I think it gets harder for me to follow.
I think that's the part that gets us is that survival is usually in quick encounters with another non-endurance runner. So all they need to do is get out of the way quickly, and then they'll be fine. So my guesstimate is actually quite the opposite. I think if you can go on a 5-mile jog, you could probably catch a caribou, because they're not going to keep running for 5 miles. They can walk. They can walk all day, maybe. But
I think this is going to be the next big reality TV show.
A hippo might run 35 miles an hour. Right? They might be faster than a human. But if you chase one, you'll catch up to it.
You're not. The migration, right?
They're animals that move hundreds of miles in a day.
Walk
and
Could
run.
you keep up with them? That is endurance.
Yeah, I think a jogger could keep up with them. I think a good like daily jogger would have no problem keeping up with a herd of walking animals.
Absolutely not. You could not keep up with a herd of elephants traversing hundreds of miles to follow them.
Absolutely.
You absolutely could not.
You could catch up with them easily. I guarantee you their normal walking speed isn't going to beat a jogger.
I don't know. I wouldn't outrun you. I would beat you on big wheels, though.
But I guess it depends on how you jog.
Justin, are you having a hard out today?
Yes.
So please complete your stories of the day.
I will. This will be my last story. It's actually a new segment. I read the study title. Do I really need to read the study?
And that's all you did for reporting the story. No, I'm kidding.
First up, the title: Trust in Physicians and Hospitals During the COVID-19 Pandemic in a 50-State U.S. Survey. This is published in JAMA Network Open. So what do we think? The trust in physicians and hospitals, what do you think that was during the pandemic? Survey, study of more than 400,000 U.S. adults, finds trust in physicians and hospitals decreased during the COVID-19 pandemic, and lower trust levels were associated with lower likelihood of pursuing vaccinations. So while healthcare workers were at their best, fending off a lethal pandemic, being the front line and only line of defense for much of it, some people lost faith in them. I wonder why. Next, the title, again from JAMA Network, Open, State Policies Regulating Firearms and Changes in Firearm Mortality. So what do we think? Did firearms increase or decrease firearm mortality?
More firearms, that's going to increase mortality, right?
More firearm regulation, less death by firearm. The most restrictive state on firearm policies was associated with 20% lower firearm mortality than the least restrictive state. Some Americans do need to read this, but I think a lot of us didn't need the study. We've known it for a very long time. And then the last study, real quick, there's a lesser known cannabinoid, CBG. If you haven't heard of it, you probably will soon, because they're doing a lot of testing on this, and it's being found to reduce anxiety better than, in a very small study thus far, than existing anti-anxiety medication. It's one of the cannabinoids in cannabis, which we've heard about CBD a lot. We know about, THC and CBD. The cannabinoids, there's like hundreds, if not thousands of them within cannabis. So most of them are produced by the plant in very small, sometimes even insignificant amounts. But because we can produce them in labs, we can actually study them and see if they contribute to the overall effects. And so this study, which was a take it and see what happens with 34 healthy, normal cannabis users, they showed that just a 20 milligram of this CBG was much more effective than placebo in reducing anxiety. And they also found an interesting uptick, which they say they triple checked the results. They found an enhancement that was statistically significant in memory, which by itself also doesn't mean that it would give you a better memory, I think. But when you have reduced anxiety, the anxiety symptoms often come with a reduced memory ability, because parts of the brain that are supposed to be recording information for retrieval are
too freaked out, man.
Too freaked out. They're doing anxious cycling over worry stuff. So reducing anxiety, I think, probably in this case more allowed for information retrieval, because they would give lists of words, and then if you were on the placebo versus on the CBG, your ability to remember more of them was linked statistically significantly with the CBG. But I think that for all of the anecdotal reasons, and I can tell you, I know a lot of people who have claimed that their marijuana use, cannabis use, was based on anxiety. There's been studies in Australia suggesting that it could be beneficial for treating even youth anxiety. But if we can narrow it down to the actual cannabinoids involved, you can separate stigma, which is really what a lot of it is. But also, if you have a compound of all these different chemicals within cannabis that people may be attracted to for completely different reasons, you can start to separate those out so that people can utilize the chemistry that they are seeking in this giant compound without having to take on the rest of it.
Yeah. And there was some recent research that said that there is a synergistic effect for some people, not all people, that CBD with THC, that CBD doesn't actually have the relaxant effects that it is supposed to, for some people, it stimulates anxiety. And so to be able to find these other small molecules that are part of the whole mixture. I think that's the exciting part, because that gets into the what is it? It's not just THC, it's not just CBD, but now what are the parts that we can use? Can we make them? And can we use them to help ourselves?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because for all of the hype, we know that there's actual reasons that have been attracting all this people to this thing for so many years. Now we can start to source it out. Okay, I gotta go because there's a train, and then I gotta get on that train, and I gotta go catch a bus from that train that'll drop me off at the place where I do.
And if you miss it, then you're gonna have to run the whole way. I hope you have the endurance.
So according to Patrick P,
Run
who is
like
a
you're being
reliable
chased
source,
by a hippo.
According to the Guinness Book of World Records, this is secondhand accounting to a third hand. The greatest American distance run is around 142 miles in 24 hours. Okay, tell me the caribou.
My point. That's the Guinness book. That's not an average human.
Well, nobody said average human. So, by the way, I don't mean to disrespect modern humans.
But when you say caribou, you're like generalizing caribou, but suddenly it's
caribou,
like
average elephant.
Okay,
average camel.
Get me a zoo caribou who's been raised on fast food and watching television instead of being out there migrating, and I bet they can't do the long distance run as well as a caribou in the wild. We're not in the wild anymore, people. We've sort of left that behind.
But you said that you could outrun a caribou, Justin.
I think I could outrun a caribou in my prime.
All right.
In my prime. I used to do long distance running as in track. That was my specialty. And I would start out with a sprint and then hold that as long as I possibly could.
Usain Bolt. I understand what you're saying. Go to work.
I think I probably could. I don't know how far he can run. I know he's faster, but I think that he runs fast and then he's like, oh, I ran fast. Now I got to take a break. I'll just keep plunking away. Persistence. That's what makes humans so great.
Resilience, endurance, keep going.
Gotta go. I gotta persistently run to this train. Otherwise,
see you later.
I actually gotta go fast. Oh, I wish I had.
See you next week, Justin. Wow. That was an adventure. All right, everybody. I will save, I guess, I think this is that time. I think this is where let's do this right now. Thank you, everybody who is enjoying the show. We have more show to go. If you love what you're hearing, if you are laughing along with us, please subscribe if you are not. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook is where you can find us. TWIS.org is our website. Share with other people so they too can enjoy the adventures that we all go on a weekly basis. And if you go to TWIS.org, you can find our Patreon link, which will take you to Patreon and our account there. You can become part of the community of TWIS supporters. Choose your level of support, $10 and more per month, and I will really try to pronounce your name. I'll read your name at the end of the show as a big thank you. I really want to read your name. There's lots of other things you can get as gifts from us for helping out, t-shirts, stickers, other things. But if you can do that, we really appreciate it. Zazzle.com, we have a link there at TWIS.org as well for our store where we have merchandise. Blair's drawn a whole bunch of cool stuff through the years. And any purchase does go to supporting the show. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for your support. We cannot do this without you. And now we will come back to the rest of the show, This Week in Science, with that wonderful part of the show that we like to call Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have iron teeth. Not me personally.
You said that earlier.
I
What?
have,
What does this mean?
yeah, I have a story about Komodo dragons and that they have
Ooh.
iron-coated teeth. So we
I thought-
know that Komodo dragons are formidable beasts,
Yes.
although Justin probably thinks that he could wrestle one. But regardless,
Ah. Oh my goodness.
they have these razor sharp teeth. They have dangerous bacteria in their mouths. They are able to take down water buffalo. They're just like, they're crazy predators. And the latest research on these guys from King's College of London, they wanted to look specifically at their teeth and what makes their teeth so good at ripping flesh and breaking bone and doing what they do best. And so they looked at the chemical and structural makeup of Komodo dragon teeth. They scoured museums for skulls and teeth of Komodo dragons, and then they studied the teeth of one living Komodo dragon at the Zoological Society of London, the London Zoo. And they used advanced imaging and chemical analysis. They were able to observe that the iron, they found there was iron in the Komodo dragon's enamel, but that it was concentrated in a thin coating on top of the tooth serrations and tips. So it looks like they have a grill. It's really wild. It's like it is fancy looking. This protective layer keeps their edges sharp, ready to be used at a moment's notice. And this leads to all sorts of new questions about what other animals might have iron or other deposits in their teeth. What is the chemical makeup of teeth? We kind of have this expectation. It's dentin and enamel. There's calcium, like there's really not much else going on besides that. But the fact that there is iron-coated teeth and the complex dental enamel has this extra wrinkle to it, or lack thereof in this case, that it's time to look at other carnivorous reptiles. And it would be very cool to be able to look at meat-eating dinosaurs. Now, the problem with that is
Ooh,
that the current technology that we have does not allow us to look at fossilized dinosaur teeth down to the molecular level to see if there's iron in them or not.
Although
So the chemical
we have been able to
changes.
see some dentin, haven't there's been some
Yeah.
analysis,
But
right? Yeah.
basically, the changes that are happening during the fossilization process obscure how much iron would be there. Specifically, the iron is not maintained in the fossilization process. So they're not able to figure that out, but they can look at the structure of the enamel itself, because that, as you're mentioning, is maintained. And so if they look at the specific structure of the enamel itself on the cutting edge of the teeth, they might be able to kind of ascertain, based on the way that it looks and is structured, if there is something that is helping them maintain that sharp cutting edge. So if it's not dull, even though they think that that individual animal is older and has eaten and torn a lot, then that might be a clue that there's something else going on. They're also hoping that with further analysis, they might be able to find other markers in iron coating that aren't changed during fossilization. So the iron itself might be gone, but there might be some chemical marker that comes along with the iron that they might be able to find. So this is all just conjecture, but this is based on the fact that this one animal that is just an amazing, impressive predator, it is a reptile, has this adaptation that we have not seen in pretty much any other animals ever. So, knowing that, it is time to start looking at everybody's teeth.
Whose teeth, though? I mean, other teeth are like, what specifically are we going to be looking at?
Well,
Like,
so for
what
starters,
are
we'll
going to
look
be
at
the important
predators
one?
that
Like,
have teeth that stay sharp.
yeah.
And specifically, if you want to think that it is an evolutionary lineage, then you want to look at reptiles. But beyond that, do you look at like bird beaks? Is there iron in any bird beaks?
Well, we know there
if you-
kind of is in some of their eyes. That's like the weird thing for
Right.
weird iron particles, but different use totally.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's time to look. Time to look at everything that you have in the museums. Go.
Go.
Okay, so they have iron on the leading edge of the teeth to protect how sharp they are. What about animals that spend their entire lives grinding on their teeth? Do they have iron or some other molecular structural change that helps them maintain their teeth longer than if it was just dented in an enamel? Like if you looked at
Right.
a
Like
cow.
sharks just lose all their teeth.
Mhm. But if you looked at an animal that spends their entire life chewing,
Cud.
yeah, is there something else going on there? So I don't know. It's pretty fun to start to kind of think about that and think that
I'd love to see if they
teeth are
could
not
iron
universal.
out some of this cutting edge research.
Yes, iron out that cutting edge research.
Oh, good Lord.
All right, from one predator to another, I have a story about brown tree snakes in Guam. Now, brown tree snakes are invasive in Guam. They are responsible for the decimation of several native bird species. Some have completely gone extinct or been locally extinct because of the brown tree snake. So, because of that, biologists and conservationists say eradicate the brown tree snake. It's killing
Right?
all these birds.
No
But
invasives. They're
it's
killing
pretty
things. Get rid of it.
hard to eradicate all of them. So the previous suggestion has been target the large mature snakes, the ones big enough to eat birds, because they're the ones that have the largest impact on these bird populations. Makes sense, right? Now, keep in mind, small snakes become big snakes, especially when you remove the big snakes. But that's a problem for later. Right now, we're going to focus on the big snakes because they're the ones ruining the bird populations. Sure. It's more complicated than that. Researchers put collars, they put radio transmitters on a bunch of fledgling birds, about 400 of them, because they wanted to know where they were getting predated upon. And they found something pretty disturbing. They recorded 294 fledgling bird deaths out of 461 birds tracked. It's a pretty bad number. So they're getting ruined by these brown tree snakes. Brown tree snakes killed 58% of those. Cats killed the other 30. Half of the birds killed by brown tree snakes were covered in saliva, but not ingested. What does that mean? It means that brown tree snakes, they don't know what's too big to eat. So they attack the bird, they try to eat the bird, they give up, they spit the bird back up. But the bird is already dead. So they don't know how to snake, partially because they're invasive. So they're not used to eating these specific birds. That's not what they evolved to eat. So they're sitting there going, "Oh, maybe I can fit that in my mouth." You can't, bud. And so they end up killing these birds that they don't even actually eat. So the way they figured this out, of course, was by finding transmitters either in poop, in a live snake, or on this bird covered in saliva that was left behind. And so the reason this is so important is, as I mentioned at the beginning of the story, they're targeting the largest snakes. That's not, unfortunately, that's not an effective conservation strategy in this case, because this research has told us that the size of the snake doesn't matter because they don't know what's too big to eat. So all the tree snakes are just attacking all of the birds. So this is actually really beneficial information because they can adjust their conservation strategy, their eradication strategy for this invasive species. And hopefully they will be able to just go gangbusters on these brown tree snakes and try to remove them from Guam, which is still going to be very, very, very hard to do. But with this new strategy and new knowledge, maybe they will be more successful. Oh, you're muted.
And I said, that would be very cool. Balance things. Don't just decimate things. There's constantly change.
Yeah. So I think the reason this story kind of sparked my interest is that the headline is like, snakes don't know how to eat. They're so stupid, right? But really, this is a situation where there was an expectation of the best way to move forward with a conservation concern. But then research was done, really weird, unconventional research that
Which is
yielded,
that's the cool part, right?
yeah, super
Good.
weird results. I don't think they expected to find a bunch of saliva-covered birds on the ground. Like, that was not the expectation going in, which leads to a completely different strategy to save these animals. So it's sad, it sucks, but hopefully this new knowledge will help save future bird species.
There's a lot we have to do to try and save all the bird species. Save the birds.
Mhm.
Save the
Also,
last
just please stop
dinosaurs.
introducing animals that don't belong.
That's not going to happen.
That'd be great.
Good luck with that. Yeah, with climate change and all else that's going on, I think that's just going to be increasing. Animals are going to be moving on their own in addition to how humans move things around. So I don't know about the likelihood of that one, but who knows? Maybe we can all be a part of solutions. You were talking about doing things differently. And I was going to make this my last story, but now I'm going to make it my next story as we move out of your
Excellent.
animal corner. Let's move into attractiveness and the odors of the female type people.
Women don't smell. I don't know what you're talking about. They're perfect and dainty and clean.
And completely no smell whatsoever. No.
Yeah, none.
There's been a lot of research over the years suggesting that there are changes to the way that women smell throughout their ovulatory cycle. And there's, all sorts of research generally about body odor and attractiveness. And there have been studies like, ooh, we'll have a guy wear a t-shirt for 3 days and then, people can see if they can recognize the smell of the guy or smell the baby or smell the person, whatever. We can smell people. We still don't know, and we still haven't discovered whether there is a vomeronasal organ, which a lot of other mammals have, which allows some of these more hormone regulated or hormone responses to mating and members of the opposite sex to take place. But we have a nose. Might not be the best nose, but we have a nose. And we can smell things, different things, sometimes all things. Anyway, this recent study published in the Royal Society B of Biological Sciences, researchers published their study, Combined Perceptual and Chemical Analyses show no compelling evidence for ovulatory cycle shifts in women's axillary odor. So what did they do in this study? They had women put cotton pads in their armpits overnight and then had guys who knew them and guys who didn't know them smell these cotton pads. This took place over over the ovulatory cycle. There were 30-odd people, women involved. They made sure all of them were vegetarian or vegan because you know what? Meat makes you smell different because it changes your pH. So that's an interesting part. But what they wanted to get into with this question was, okay, number one, can we see that there's a difference in odorant stuff when the hormones are changing throughout the cycle? Number two, are guys able to pick that up? Does it matter if they've known them for a while, like if they're partners or if it's a stranger? And so they started trying to tease all of this stuff apart. And where other studies have found that guys could tell that there was something different, that women were more attractive, it's usually during ovulation. That's usually oh, your face is more attractive right now, or oh, you smell so nice right now. What is going on there? Our behaviorists, scientists trying to figure that out, have been looking into this. This study found nothing. Nothing at all. Didn't matter whether guys knew the women, didn't know the women, whether it was long-term exposure or short-term exposure, and also the chemical evidence that they were looking at using mass spectroscopy to be able to try and actually check if there were different odorant molecules involved. Nothing really played out. So what I'm wondering, though, they keep calling it this axillary odor, and it's you just stuck cotton pads in women's armpits. Maybe there should be samples taken from other places in the female anatomy. Maybe you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. That's the first thing I thought of because in the animal kingdom, for example,
Yeah.
I used to see all the time that the male giraffe would sample the female giraffe's urine.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the show. There's scientific
the
studies
Flehmen
about that.
response, right?
Mhm.
And so they'd be able to identify if the female was ovulating based on the taste of the urine. So there's other hormone signals happening besides sweat. And in fact, to Justin's point from earlier, we're kind of unusual in the fact that we sweat. So evolutionarily, if you want to talk about where these hormones might come out, sweat is probably the least likely option.
And we've seen in other studies that actually the microbiota on our skin is more like it is a larger part of influencing that scent. So I feel like there's something missing in these studies.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there. But apparently right now, according to science, there's no difference. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, I saw that headline and I was like, there's something else happening here. I don't buy it.
And the interesting thing is, going through the study, the researchers never bring up anything else. It's like that is the methodology for doing these studies is a t-shirt or cotton pads in the armpits, or that's just the way it's done. And I'm very fascinated that no one has tried something different. So anyway, I am more than my armpits.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, hey, science, do something weird. Try something different. That might be cool. And one of the studies that I also think is really interesting, and I'm a little sad that Justin had to run off to work already, because we talk about Toxoplasma gondii being not so good a lot on the show. But this study is actually really interesting, was published this last week in Nature Microbiology, and it is using Toxoplasma for good, because Toxoplasma is a parasite that can get into your brain, and we have a hard time getting drugs into the brain. They modified Toxoplasma gondii, engineered the parasite to contain therapeutic proteins that it could deliver into the brains of mice. They also tested it in human cells in dishes, not in real live humans. But the fact that this parasite is capable of gaining entry to the brain, and that researchers are able now to engineer it, it may be a therapeutic tool for allowing us to deliver drugs, maybe gene therapy, all sorts of things for brain disorders and issues, illnesses that to date we have a hard time treating because it's hard to get past the blood-brain barrier. But, there's the downsides. We talk about we talk about the adenovirus associated gene modification. So there's a bunch of stuff that it's AAV, which is the acronym, but they're viruses that infect us all the time. And they've been able to create uses for these viruses. And they were using them to deliver some COVID vaccines. Some of them were, they create these little capsids and they can contain stuff, but they're great. And we've basically defanged them for our uses. But some of the strains of those adenoviruses, our bodies have, if you've gotten that virus before, your body's like, you're not getting in, or it has a larger immune response. And then the vaccine doesn't work the way that you want it to. So using microbes that are infectious actually has a downside if your body has a memory of those infections, and it may not work in the way that you want it to. So there has to be a way to get it to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your past with cats before I give you this vaccine.
Exactly.
Oh, you had an outdoor cat as a child? Okay, we're going to have to use a different delivery method for you.
Yeah. So hopefully the parasite can get in there, actually do a cool job, not do the parasite-y thing. There's one parasitologist who was quoted in an article from ScienceNews saying, this may be like trying to deliver pastries with a bazooka. So there's a lot of work still to be done in using this parasite and other parasites as potential entry mechanisms into the brain, but it's a fascinating direction. Let's use nature to our advantage. Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe. And my last study for the night, how do you feel about advertising for products that are like using artificial intelligence? This vehicle will decrease the number of pedestrian deaths, or this cell phone will do everything you want it to. How does the term artificial intelligence make you feel about buying a new product, Blair?
Me personally, I don't like it because I feel like our AI is not ready. I think it does a bad job.
If people in the chat want to answer too, I'd love to see your answers. But there is a study out this last week from Washington State University Pullman, published in the Journal of Hospitality, Marketing, and Management. They surveyed more than 1,000 people, only in the United States, though, so it's limited in that regard. But, I mean, U.S., we represent everyone, right? No, I'm kidding. That was totally sarcastic. The researcher is a clinical assistant professor of marketing who led the study. And in their survey, they included a bunch of questions and descriptions of different products, service kind of categories. They were presented with stuff, say, about cell phones or smart televisions. And in one group, the term artificial intelligence was included. In the other, the term artificial intelligence was not included. Guess which products people wanted to buy more?
How old were these people? This is the other, was it a pretty consistent cross section? Because I also feel like that really depends on a lot of factors, but I guess people didn't want it to contain AI. I feel like society's kind of turning against AI right now.
Yeah, so these are just adults in the United States. There's a paywall for this article, so for this particular article, I don't have access to that.
Ask AI.
I could ask AI. What do they do? The bottom line is that when, according to the researcher, Mesut Cicek, when AI is mentioned, it tends to lower emotional trust, which in turn decreases purchase intentions. We found emotional trust plays a critical role in how consumers perceive AI-powered products. And if you're buying something like a car or like a big ticket item, what they in the study call high risk purchases, you're uncertain. There's like am I really spending my money wisely? What if it fails? Is this okay? What expense? What's going to happen if I get an AI heart monitor? What's going to go on there? And so devices that are more high risk have a higher emotional attachment to the purchase. And if AI is mentioned in the description or the sales of it, it's disadvantageous. And it is disadvantageous to the sales of those items. And so, hey, all you marketers out there, maybe dial it down on the AI front. Dudes, people know it's not ready. People don't trust it yet.
I really feel like the AI rollout has been just severely botched. And as the chat room is talking about, the way we label things as AI isn't even entirely accurate. Some things we call AI that aren't AI. A lot of AI is just machine learning. And then there's true AI that accidentally tells people to go jump off a bridge. Like there's just
I hope it doesn't. Jeez.
That happened. So anyway, it feels like the rollout of AI in our society has been severely botched because
rushed.
Things were released that weren't ready. Things were called AI that weren't AI. Expectations were set that were not realistic. And beta testing is happening on normal humans with AI, which is not good. There's a reason that you have a test group and you do QA before you release any technology, let alone something that can think for itself in some way, right? Or can at least draw conclusions for you. Like the fact that people can use ChatGPT to write their own essays in school. Now teachers are having to try to figure out how to determine if something is written for real or not. And there's everybody's playing catch up now. I feel like that's the other problem is there was no like concerted effort to do this in a way that was responsible. And so we're all just kind of trying to adjust to, okay, what is real? Can I trust this picture of this celebrity? Like it's just gotten kind of out of control. So of course there's distrust.
I think there's and we're dealing with the biased data sets. So there is definitely bias within what the AI is able to contextually put together based on the probability matrix that it's working within for the contextual answers that it's trying to parse. Yeah, there's big questions around it still, and there's been a lot of hype, and I think you're absolutely right, Blair. And we should, and I hope, and it's going to happen because I make mistakes when I say AI in a very general sense, and not in like a joking kind of way. I hope that our audience calls me out on it because I do know the difference. But what I think is important is that we start talking about it as machine learning, as algorithms, as probability matrix. Let's talk about large language models. Let's start using the accurate language so that we are not part of the hype.
And I think that the hype is exactly the issue too, is that I'm in the heart of Silicon Valley now is where I work. And so I get to see kind of the billboards and the conversations happening. And that's part of the issue is that that Silicon Valley has its own echo chamber where the tech culture has decided that AI is this golden goose. And so they're pushing that.
Yeah.
And so because they're pushing it amongst each other, they think that we all want it also. But maybe we don't. Maybe we just want our search engine to search. Maybe that's all we want.
And search well. Can we go
Yes.
back to that again? Like at one
Yeah,
point,
and put
oh.
ads above the actual search results. That would be great.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think you bringing that up is it's a big point, right? The science is there. The science of quote unquote artificial intelligence and getting to a human level artificial intelligence or a even superhuman level artificial intelligence, is a goal of a lot of people because who knows how it could help us, right? I mean, there's also kind of sci-fi scary stuff that goes along with it. But is that your phone? Is that like you living in your house every day with your cats? Is that you going to work? How is that going to like really work with our lives? And do we want it? And there's a lot of, I think that's a lot of the big question. I think a lot of people really look at like, oh, well, Steve Jobs and Apple, they gave us things we didn't even know we wanted. And it's true. Sometimes there are things that, oh, I didn't know I wanted that, but that's great. But there's a certain level of also making sure it works before it really gets out there.
Well, and what is AI useful for? Like I saw recently the latest version of ChatGPT that has a voice that talks to you, right? Where acting as a translator. So you put your phone down, you say something in English, it speaks it in Spanish. Then you can have a conversation with somebody in another language you don't speak. Excellent.
I
Great.
love it.
Great use of the technology. But my favorite thing I've seen about AI over and over recently is, I thought that as technology got better, AI was going to cook and clean for me so I could do art. But instead, my AI is doing art for me so that I can cook and clean. And that is
So I
not
can
how this
keep
is supposed to
working.
go. Right?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be stuck at our desks longer doing our monotonous tasks so that AI can go create art for us. No. Do my Excel spreadsheets and answer the emails that are mundane and do the things that I
Yes.
shouldn't have to do anymore so that I can do the fun things, so I can go experience life, please.
So that humans can have the humanity that we were born into this world to experience, right? The life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, this is where the science and the engineering delves into the philosophy and delves into our social fabric. But this is, I think, the part of the point where I have always said that science is politics, because at some point there's that it connects everywhere, and people need to have a voice, need to be understood, need these companies, the governments, we need to be having conversations where people are heard and are not just herds of people. So I have lots of really, really big, deep thoughts right now as I'm heading for my birthday.
In
What's even
2
happening here?
hours.
I know. Technically 7 a.m.-ish tomorrow morning, but it's one of those round ones. I'm having a little sip of wine tonight to get ready.
Good.
Got myself some tickets to a little local music festival to start tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm taking a couple of more days off. But I think we've done it. I'm getting away from the AI. I'm getting away from the algorithms. I'm going to get outside and I'm going to listen to some people make music. I'm going to be around people dancing and having fun. And I am so glad that all you people have been here tonight. Blair, are we done? Have we done it?
We're done.
Okay, bye.
Give me those Patreon sponsors.
I'm gonna give them to ya. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Got to give some shout outs to our favorite people here. Fada, thank you so much for your help on show notes and all the social media stuff. You keep doing it, and it's always great. Thank you so much. Identity 4, thank you for continuing to record the show. Rachel, thank you for editing the show. for the podcast. That is the great thing. Everyone in the chat rooms right now, thank you for being here and chatting and giving your thoughts, for sharing, being a part of the conversation. And Gord, Arnlor, others who are involved in moderating, thank you for doing that and making sure that our chat rooms are really great places to be. We have a Discord chat room where I watch other people talk. And if you want to be part of the Discord, you should be a Patreon sponsor, because that's how you can find that little link. So right now, I'm going to take a moment to thank our Patreon sponsors. A big old thank you to Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith. I didn't share the screen again. Okay, here we go. Add to stage. Boom, boom. There we go. Ha ha. I can do this. Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kenton Northcote, George Chorus, Pierre Velazarb, John Ratnaswamy, Chris Wozniak, Vegard Shefstad, Donathan Styles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Reagan Shubrew, Sarah Forfar, Don Mundis, PIG, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fredas 104, Skyluke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles Jack, Brian Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day. Oh, also, happy birthday, Johnny, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes, E.O., Adam Mishkan, Aaron Luthen, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul D. Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, he went to bed already, and Tony Steele. Thank you all for joining us on Patreon, for supporting us on Patreon. Can't do it without you. And if anyone out there wants to support on Patreon, head over to twist.org and click that Patreon link. Oh, Tulak Horde and the Acolyte Orchestra. Thank you so much for that donation there. That's amazing. I think that's through YouTube. You can donate through YouTube too. That's really awesome. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks for joining us. On next week's show,
we will be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels.
Want to listen to us as a podcast? Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure that you get your friends to subscribe too.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website. That's at www.twist.org. While you're there, go ahead and sign up for a newsletter. It'll come out at some point.
I keep having things that I want to write. I don't know. It'll happen. Just wait. Be patient. We love your feedback. And if there is a topic or something that you'd like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, let us know on one of our social media accounts. Someday we might check them. I don't know if Fada's there. He'll check it. Send us an email. We have emails. They're probably on the website. We used to say them all the time. There's too many of them, though. But if you do, make sure you put TWIS in the subject line so your email doesn't Blair. I always love it when you do this. So please finish this one.
You have to put TWIS, TWIS, on the subject line, or your email will be trampled by a hippopotamus.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We look forward to discussing science news again with you next week. And if you've learned anything from the show tonight, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science.
This week in science, science, science. This week in science, this week in science. This week in science, 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 science. I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent.
We never represent anyone's views but our own. Show. Yeah. After show, but really, most likely, someone's got to go. How's it going, Blair? How are you feeling?
Oh,
Somebody-
I'm okay.
Yeah, someone emailed because I mentioned last week that you were feeling poorly and was worried about you and wondered how you were doing. So,
Oh, that's so nice. No, I was
Yeah.
fine. You know, it's always scary. I mean, I got COVID. It's always scary when you get COVID because it's like, uh-oh, am I going to be one of those people that ends up in the hospital right now? Or one of my loved ones? But I ate outside. I ate every meal outside on the porch for a week. I slept on an air mattress in the spare room, and I wore a mask in my house, and I did not give it to anyone else, which was a small miracle.
it's wonderful. Yeah. But I'm glad you're here tonight. And I'm glad you're doing well. And yeah, and I hope everyone stays well. I mean, you're going to be good for like at least another 3 months?
Yeah.
During
They
this
say about
whole-
90 days.
Yeah. I wish it were longer. Come on,
know.
buddy. Get it.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm officially in the 2 Timers Club now.
So I went to San Francisco I was in Boston 2 weeks ago. I was in San Francisco this last weekend. I've been on airplanes. I have a hoarse voice because I did a lot of yelling this last weekend. That's what happens when I'm around my friends. I don't know. I need to learn how to... No, I'm never going to learn how to manage myself. It's good. Be who you are, everyone. But yeah, I'm going to make sure and test myself before I go to the festival tomorrow, just to be sure that everything is good. But I feel okay. I feel fine. It's just like, I'm like, meh. So yeah. But to be conscientious, I will.
Mhm.
Although I'd rather not know on my birthday. But anyway, we'll see. I'll let you all know how it goes next week.
I'm sure you're fine. It was very obvious. I woke up and I was like, something is wrong.
Yeah. I've had COVID once, and when I had it, it was something. It's different. It's not
Yeah.
You kind of know. But yeah. Yeah. Everyone out there, Tulak Horde. AI is not going to render human musicians obsolete. Yes, I am addressing, this is where I'm addressing it very quickly. Blair has to go to bed soon because she's got a little baby and she's not been well. And so she needs her sleep. And so do I, because I didn't get a lot of sleep this last weekend. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't think I'm not worried about AI taking the place of artists, specifically music, especially. But I think that you are already seeing the ability to plug prompts into things and get visual representations of things that normally you'd have to pay or license creators to create clip art or graphics or all these other things. So I'm not saying that it's going to render human art obsolete, but it is going to change the way people make money from these things. And I do think that if AI gets good enough at rendering like music with a K, like for commercials or backing tracks for a 10-second video or whatever, that also does take a revenue stream away from creators. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be listening to AI music on the radio instead of human musicians, but I do think that it's going to change the way that like career content creators make money. And so it's,
yeah. So I like Tulak's comments in here like talking about the history of music and how everyone thought rock and roll was dead in the 80s because there were synths and new technology with samplers and emulators. And there is a big deal about contracts that license people's voices, for instance, to be able, so like Elvis or, other musicians who, the people who own their, I guess, I'm forgetting their empire. I'm not thinking of the right word, but basically own their catalog, own all the licenses to all their stuff, can then say, I want to make more money and I'm going to license it. And we could have, generative AI songs or even songs written by real musicians, but with Elvis singing, the vocal track because the voice has been sampled and is now being emulated. This is happening. There is stuff. It is at the beginning of it. I mean, I really do believe that all of this stuff, like we were talking about before, is hype in the fear of it and in the also pushing of the, it's gonna do all this stuff, bro. But there are limitations, right? Like you go into Mid-Journey and you try and make a thing and then you're like, that's not what I wanted. You have to learn, you have, and then you have an image that's not layered that you can't change because you put it in Photoshop and you're like, I don't have all the things that I want it different. And your creative director's like, change this thing. And you're like, well, I actually can't because I can't go back in the prompts that I used. But it can be a really cool tool and it might help musicians and other creators actually create some cool new ideas and sounds and add to what humans are capable of creatively. And like you said, Blair, there are going to be those things where, there's people are going to lose jobs or not make money. There are going to be companies that are just using AI. But I believe that there's going to be a huge place in the world for what we missed during COVID, connection with people. There's going to be the live music. I don't want to go. I mean, I love gorillas and like their cartoon stuff that's on the screen while they're playing. I love gorillas. That's great. And there's like a Japanese band that does some kind of like generated hologram kind of thing. It's a gimmick. The music wasn't even that good. There's always, I mean, what are we at right now, Blair? 8 billion people?
Yeah.
On the planet? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's gotta be place
Yeah.
for people to be really making money and doing things and doing music and art and all this stuff. And AI is not gonna ever replace that. But it can be a great tool, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, there's also there's the theory that the AI algorithms that have been created are basically all gonna degenerate into nonsense over the next few years, and basically we're gonna have to start over with AI from square one, which I think is a really interesting theory, because you're basically not gonna be able to unwind back to where we are now because it's all generative. I think it's a really
right.
interesting idea.
I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
But I
And
really
there are
do
people
feel like
and there are people right
Yeah,
in
go ahead.
it where they're like, I like the weird thing, so I'm gonna click on the weird not right thing and like it, and then the AI doesn't know that that's actually wrong, but people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's weird, and I love it," and so that's actually feeding back in, that's why. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
Mhm. No, just that I think the part that's getting missed here is that teaching an AI to write music or to draw a pretty picture, that wasn't I don't feel like that was the intended final product. That was testing the algorithm, right? And then it kind of got out of control to be this hyper focus of how it's being used because it's something that the average person can use and enjoy doing because it's fun. But then again, what it should be doing is it should be doing things that actually make our lives easier instead, like translating, like helping us find information, like skimming through giant data sets. That is the thing that is less fun or sexy or exciting to talk about, but is actually going to make our lives easier and better if it is used appropriately. So I think
Yep.
that's the part where like we're losing the plot a little bit. Is that we're getting so stuck on these kind of niche uses of it that we're losing the potential sight of where it could go. I don't think we need AI to drive our cars, but we do need AI to predict climate futures. You know, like there's differences, or to predict data trends, or to or like traffic trends, or to, you know, find a
Yeah.
better engine, or all these other things that it could be doing. I don't need it to drive my car for me around a bunch of cars that aren't driven by AI. I don't need that.
No. And I think that's like right now, a lot of the electric car companies are getting deep into the AI and self-driving or generative AI for I don't know what reasons. But like seriously, I just want a good car that's affordable, that works. And that if it's an electric car, I can plug into my house. Oh, maybe it can actually work as a backup battery for my house. And oh, everybody's using the same plugs, and this it can, you know, and the power grid is working through algorithms that are smart. So a smart grid that allow, like, if you have one weirdo car that like shorts out or whatever, it's not going to take down the whole block when it's plugged in. You know, you need to have everything talking to everything else in a smart way. And that's where it's the beauty of putting it all together is really going to make our lives easier, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I want to hang out with people who make music. I want to drum stupid drums with people. I want to sing songs loudly and dance. And that's not, an AI is not going to do that for me.
No.
Yeah, but what would convince anyone to stop calling what we have now AI? Yeah, I think it's too late, actually. I think it's like people got stuck with all browsers. You're always Googling.
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to blow my nose. I need a Kleenex. I need to make a copy. Oh, I'm Xeroxing it. Oh, maybe I'm old for bringing up that one. But
Yeah. No, that's an excellent one.
it's the verbing of brands. And it happens. And this is a verbing of a concept that is as yet unproven. And it's been put there in our heads by marketers. And
Yep.
I don't know, maybe it's that kind of battle where once upon a time it was global warming, and now we've been for years been trying to switch it to climate change, which is still not the best, but it's better and more people use it. But there's, I don't know, maybe we can, maybe it's similar to that.
I just don't see the average person saying machine learning the way that they say AI.
No, who's
Because
going to say
I don't feel like it's harder for them to grasp.
large language model,
Yeah.
probability matrix? And most people took math, and the idea of an algorithm, they don't like it. So
Yeah. They don't want to think of themselves as a number man. I'm not a number man.
no. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, this is where we need to use science and social science and behavioral science, psychology, and all the real science. Ooh, let's change things, everybody. We'll figure out another word. I don't know. It'll be like Justin's chlamydia.
Yeah, that caught on really good.
Totally caught on. Eric Knapp, I think before we can figure out AI, we need to figure out natural intelligence. Fair point. Blair.
Yes.
Say goodnight.
Good night, Blair. Say good night.
Yeah. Good night, Kiki. Good night, everyone.
Happy birthday, Kiki.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's my birthday, and I'll science if I want to. Hopefully not be sick and be really happy. Everybody have a wonderful, safe, healthy, science-filled week, driving you to curiously drop into those rabbit holes, find new things, enjoy life. Yeah. Stay safe, stay curious, and stay lucky, everyone. See you next week.